So, I mean, there's 200 reasons there. I'm just reading through and seeing what's there. I haven't seen this report, so I don't know what
That is right.
That's the first challenge. So who was the Heinz with his name? Is he separate? It's very good.
Dr. Frickett, we could just, I think we'll start from Antonio Woods.
Thank you, Anna. Mr. Rolfe, on the 28th of June of 2019, there was another occasion in relation to a man by the name of Antonio Woods where you did not activate your body-worn camera. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, I said I'd check for you about who provided the remedial advice. Respective Malcolm Ryder, on the 4th of October of 2018, I suggest to you that you received remedial advice from Acting Senior Sergeant Roche, and that was reinforced the next day by Acting Superintendent Finesse. Does that ring a bell?
I'd accept it. I just can't recall too well the names.
Okay. At any rate, will you agree that on quite a number of occasions you failed to activate your body-worn video and you received guidance and reminders and advice about those failures?
Yes.
But in spite of those measures, there were still further occasions when you did not activate your body-worn video, for whatever reason.
Correct.
I suggest to you that that is indicative of your having contempt for compliance with your obligations, even when reminded of them by officers senior to you in the Northern Territory Police Force.
I disagree.
You've told the tribunal, you've told the court that you felt wronged by the whole process of the preferring of charges and the coronial process. Is that a fair summary?
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why you have resorted to utilising the media, as you put it, as a tool.
That was for the criminal process, yes.
Well, your usage of the media has not been confined wholly to the criminal process, but has extended during the coronial process as well, has it not?
In regard to the letter I wrote to NT Independent?
That's one example. You've given interviews to The Australian and to Spotlight as well.
That was due to the criminal process.
Okay. The interview with The Australian was on the 11th of March 2022. Is that right? That was the day of your being found not guilty. Is that right?
I'm having a mind blank.
It doesn't matter, that's all right. At any rate, you were directed in May of 2022 by Commander Anderson not to contravene the social media policy or the personal use of social media instructions. Is that right?
Yes.
And in relation to such matters, then Deputy Commissioner of Police Murphy cautioned you in relation to these matters and ordered you to be of good behaviour for 2 years. Do you recall that?
I accept that. Maybe 12 months. If it was 2 years, it's 2 years.
Nonetheless, on the 23rd of February of 2023, you published an open letter in the Northern Territory Independent and also on social media. Do you recall that?
I sent it to the NT Independent, yes.
And in the course of that, you expressed a range of views and agreements.
Yes.
And I'm not going to repeat the exact words that you used out of respect for Kumanjayi's family, but it was in that open letter that you made the assertion that Kumanjayi was a young man with a violent past who engaged in a variety of forms of abuse of young persons.
Yes.
When you did that, did you do so aware of the fact that you had been the subject of directions from Commander Anderson and the imposition of the, if you like, good behaviour bond from Deputy Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
So is it fair to say this was, aside from whatever impact it was going to have on Kumanjayi's family and the community, an open challenge basically to the persons in authority in the Northern Territory Police Force?
In part, yes. There was extreme circumstances. There was other intentions, but in part, yes.
And after that, a notice of alleged breach of discipline was served 3 days later. And on the 4th of April, you were dismissed from the Northern Territory Police Force on public interest grounds. Is that right?
Yes.
And you accept that the reason stated in the dismissal related to summarise it, your breach of the directions from Commander Anderson and the order from Deputy Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
I suggest to you that your use of the media as a tool, as you put it to Dr. Dwyer, is again illustrative of your unpreparedness to comply with orders, directions and guidance from your superiors in the police force, because you are able to find reasons and rationalisations to do what you want.
I would agree with that completely. If I think what I need to do is the right thing, then I'll do the right thing.
Okay. So you reflect on your situation, including your own feelings of having been hard done by and persecuted, and in your mind that legitimises your behaving as you deem appropriate, regardless of what you are directed or commanded to do by those superior to you in the police force.
I believe doing the right thing is more important than following directions given by supervisors in regard to, for example, speaking to the media.
And when you say doing the right thing, you mean doing the right thing in your own interests?
No, I don't.
I'm going to move to a different topic now, and I'm going to be very brief about this because you've been asked questions by a number of council about the episode 3 days before your attendance at UNDMU, the episode involving Smith and Hand and the confrontation with Kumanjayi.
Yes.
What I'm referring to. You're very familiar with that because you've watched the body-worn footage from both Smith and Hand on a significant number of occasions, correct?
Yes.
Now, without pinning you down to a specific number, and counts have been done, can you tell her on roughly how many occasions you watched it or showed it to people?
At what point in time?
Prior to your arrival at UNDMU?
I watched it probably 10 times while showing it to people with the counts, as I've mentioned before. people used my Axon login
Yeah.
on my computer to watch the body-worn video when I wasn't watching it.
And so your evidence is that you believe that that is what has inflated the numbers of apparent viewings of the videos.
That is what has inflated the numbers of the viewings.
At any rate, you saw it enough times to form views about the professionalism of the conduct of Smith and Hand. Is that fair?
In conjunction with the job write-up that I looked at on Promise, yes.
And as you put it in the spotlight video, the view that you formed was that they responded with a flight freeze reaction.
Yes.
You said in that video, I don't think any decision was actually made in their brains. They were scared and their bodies took over. Luckily, no one got hurt on that day, but they put their lives in Kumanjayi Walker's hands that day, which is, in my view, unacceptable. Is that what you said?
I accept that.
And that's still your view?
Yes.
And more particularly, that was your view when you went to Uendamu and ultimately went into the two houses in search of Kumanjayi?
Yes.
You've called those two men cowards, haven't you?
Yes.
And to be fair, what you said is, I don't believe they're cowards for their actions on the night, I believe they're cowards for their actions afterwards. Is that right?
Yes.
I'm going to read to you some of what you said in the Spotlight video, just to confirm that that's your recollection of what you said. From what I've seen, both of them have failed to take personal responsibility for their actions or lack of actions. I didn't see any critical thinking in that incident, and the fact is that because they haven't taken personal responsibility for their lack of conditioning or lack of training, that means they can't improve. So that if they are in a situation again, and if they get themselves killed, that's on them. But if they get another police officer killed, or if they allow a civilian, even worse, to be killed, it's unacceptable. And we've had a situation here where they have really failed in their training and there's been no fix. And you can't fix it if they don't take personal responsibility. So that's why I think they are cowards. Because they haven't. They've tried to morph it to the point where that was a critical decision made, not abide by their training or not to fire their weapons, or not to draw their weapons. And I think it's a lie. That's what you said, isn't it?
Yes, I accept that.
So these are two, would you call them bush police officers?
Oh, at the time they were bush police, yes.
Yeah. Who had served in the community for an extended period of time?
I'm not sure of their service.
Okay. I suggest you they knew Kumanjayi, knew his family, and knew the community.
Okay.
It's answered.
We've heard a lot of evidence about, we've heard a lot of evidence from them and others about their time in the community. Sure.
I'll move on. The decision that those two officers made was not to escalate the situation and to allow Kumanjayi to pass and to flee, correct?
I don't believe they made a conscious decision.
So that was the effect of their actions, so you can say that. He ran past them, left the house, dropped the axe, went on his way.
Yes.
With an outcome That no one was physically harmed.
Yes.
Would you concede that having knowledge of we'll call him an offender for this purpose, and of the family, and of the culture of the people of the town, are very useful pieces of information to have to deal with a difficult situation?
Yes.
Would you agree that there were lessons to be learned from that incident on the Wednesday?
Yes.
And that if a further attempt was to be made to take Kumanjayi into custody, it was important that those lessons be learned?
Yes.
And presumably that's one of the reasons, at least, why you viewed that video on a significant number of occasions.
Yes.
Did you learn from that video that Kumanjayi had the potential to be volatile and impulsive?
Yes.
This is an easy one. He obviously didn't want to be taken into custody, and if given a chance would run away.
Yes.
He could be dangerous at close quarters.
Yes.
He could, if he had the opportunity, have resort to a sharp weapon.
Yes.
And it could be problematic to confine him within a small area, especially if the lighting was not too good.
I didn't take that lesson.
Okay.
It's a necessary part of arresting anyone to confine them at some point.
Yes. Absolutely it is. But of course there are different circumstances in which it can be done. And on the Wednesday incident, it was in poor lighting inside a house late in the afternoon.
I accept that. I'm not unable to control the lighting arrangements inside different houses.
Of course you are. But you can control when an attempt is made to take a person into custody, having regard to the location and the lighting at the time.
Sometimes you can, yes.
Yeah. So, as a result of viewing the body-worn footage, I suggest to you that the obvious lesson to learn was not to repeat the circumstances in which there was the attempt to take Kumanjayi into custody on the Wednesday evening.
Correct. That is why one of the reasons why the 5 a.m. arrest plan would have been wrong, I would say. It would be nearly an exact repeat if he was in a location found then. So I agree with you, yes.
The only difference is that he may well have been in fairly deep sleep at 5 in the morning and taken by surprise.
Until you knock on the door of the premises and give him permission to enter the premises, which you're required because no one knew exactly where he was going to be. If you did believe on reasonable grounds that he was in those premises and didn't, for some reason, knock and made a loud entry, then that would potentially wake him up as well. What I saw from the video that you're talking about was that when he was sleeping in, or when he was in a bedroom, he had that door locked. So regardless of if we were let into the house at 5 a.m, if we had found a house that he was located at, my lesson is that he would be behind a locked door, at which point we would need to knock on the door and subsequently wake him up.
So you don't identify any advantages really to a 5 a.m. arrest as against one in the afternoon or evening?
I don't identify any advantages to a 5 a.m. arrest, especially where his location is not known, where he will be at 5 a.m. If anything, it could be more problematic with the incident on Wednesday heightening his his anxiety with the police.
Did you give consideration to the potential for cordoning and containing and requiring him to exit the premises in a peaceful way, given that there was a dog there and given that there were a number of members and the potential even to have a local member whom he knew?
Again, I would have loved the local members' support if we had the numbers for a cordon containment and if we knew he was in a house. If we knew he was in a house,
Yeah.
of course.
So, what lesson do you say you've put into operation from the Wednesday when you attempted to take Kumanjayi into custody?
Well, the fact was, as we've said before, I just knew the lesson was that he was an offender of potential of violence, potentially using edged weapons. Unfortunately, you're not allowed to utilise that lesson in every situation. I'm not allowed to confine every person that I think is a potential suspect. I'm not allowed to physically restrain them until I confirm whether they are not an offender, unless I believe they are that offender. Otherwise, that would be assault. So, unfortunately, I can't put every lesson into plan and do so.
So, in terms of implementation of the lessons from the Wednesday, that is your best answer, is it?
Yes.
We can do this very quickly. The process, no doubt, of being arrested, charged, and awaiting trial was a traumatic one for you.
Yes.
Were you assigned a person by the name of Commander John Atkin to be a liaison person with you?
Yes.
And you had some contact with him. I'm not going to ask you the details.
Yes.
Were you assigned a senior psychologist by the name of Chantel Barker, also to provide you with some support? Once more, I'm not going to ask you details of any interactions.
Yes. We basically stopped talking after she made me aware that the police were attempting to seize the notes she had made during our talks. So those talks were no longer being held, I guess, privately.
Did you receive support and assistance from the chaplain at Alice Springs?
We talked on occasion, perhaps. I think what was that Padre's name?
Were you offered you wanted to continue to engage in exercise? You're an active man, are you not?
Sorry, you just missed a question from Mr. Rolfe. He was wondering the name of the Padre. He couldn't quite remember
Yes.
about the assistance, I don't think.
I'll find out for you. I've forgotten his name as well, which I shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
He's very often at court.
Jeff.
There he is, Jeff.
I think there was another Padre at the time that was.
Oh, it was another one, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You had some contact with that Padre as well, did you?
I didn't. A Padre may have contacted my family. May have. I don't believe that I talked to a Padre during that time.
Were you offered a membership of a swimming pool
No, I don't believe so.
during his time as suspected? You don't recall?
In Canberra,
No, here
up here,
in Alice Springs. I beg your pardon, in Darwin, I thought.
a membership at a swimming pool.
Yes. And my instructions are you declined it.
I
You don't remember?
don't know. I have no recollection.
Were you given a gym membership?
No. I believe what had occurred was I requested access to the gym at PMC,
You did.
so I could use that, and they denied that access. And I believe they stated that they would be willing to pay for a membership at a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym.
Yeah. Did you take them up on that?
I don't know anything about a pool. I may have sent some receipts for the membership to them, yes. But that was when I was back at work for that period, I believe. No, not at work, but you know what I mean.
In summary, your position after the years of thinking about what occurred is that if presented with the same situation, you'd do pretty much the same again in endeavouring to take Kumanjayi into custody. Is that right?
Hindsight is 2020. If I was faced with the same situation when I'm in that room,
No, generally, on that evening, would you go to the two houses, enter them the way that you did?
again, hindsight is 2020. If I was back in time now, I would not leave a bush station without the bush members present, and I would have my body worn on for every single conversation I had with every member. In hindsight, that's a big change that I would have. If I was IR team member, posted out bush for deployment, I would refuse to leave the station without a bush member present.
Because the involvement of a bush member in communicating with a person who may be anxious and not wanting to be taken into custody is a very significant tactical opportunity, is it not?
It depends on the bush member. The main reason I would do that would be to prevent the attack of not doing so. It would be to cover my own ass, as I say.
You don't actually see any advantage in enabling a person who may have some rapport with the individual to be taken into custody, speaking with them and defusing the situation.
Well, of course, if that bush member is up to that task. There are a number of, just because someone works at bush doesn't mean they're necessarily a good police officer or a bad police officer. But it's, again, not every bush police officer is a unicorn that can solve every situation, like you're saying.
You knew on this occasion that there was an officer who was going to be available the next morning, did you not?
Who was that, sorry?
Alafaya.
Yes, again, as per my evidence previously, we were told that he was not to assist with the arrest.
But he could be present, he could communicate, for instance, during the cordoning and containing phase of the arrest process.
My belief, as per my evidence, and as per one of his statements that he's made, was that he was under the belief as well that he was to stay at the station.
That could have been something that you discussed at the meeting before going out in search of Kumanjayi.
Correct, as per my previous evidence. I requested a bush member, any of the bush members present, to come with us, and that was denied.
Because the proposed apprehension was to be the next morning, which time the bush member would be available.
He was available then. He was in the muster room. I was looking at him. He was doing nothing. And again, as per my previous evidence, there was discussions that changed the plan with Sergeant Frost's blessing.
I'm not going to go over that with you again. You've given no evidence about that. But at any rate, you accept that the presence of a bush officer who knows the person to be taken into custody, if they're competent, can be a significant advantage in apprehending the individual.
Yes.
Now, just finally, you've had the opportunity to think about your own conduct, and you've said what you've learned in that regard, and you've had the opportunity to reflect upon the suffering of Kumanjayi's family and of the community. You've heard many of the things that have been said by representatives of that community. Is there anything that you want to communicate to them? Anything further?
I would make a suggestion that I believe that it would be. I definitely feel for them, and I'm sorry for the trauma that they've gone through, and I'm sorry for the trauma that's been multiplied. Over the last few years, I feel very badly for them, as I believe that they will be unable to move forward until, if I was in their shoes, I would be unable to move forward until certain things are clarified. For example, one of those being, because there's two things that are occurring in regard to me, my situation, that I could not come to terms with if I was a member of the family. One is that the message I believe they've received is that I have done the wrong thing in that room and I have unlawfully killed Kumanjayi. That is Andrew Barham, the use of force expert's evidence, which still seems to be supported by the police force. At the same time, the police have finalised the investigation into that shooting with an email to me of remedial guidance. If I was a member of the community, I could never move forward with that because those two facts cannot coexist. So I believe it must be horrible for them until one of those is established as the truth, then they would be unable to move forward. So unless the police say one of those has to be wrong. If I've unlawfully killed Kumanjayi Walker, yet I have received an email of remedial guidance, that is not just. If I did not unlawfully kill Kumanjayi Walker, then the police must say Andrew Barham was wrong and we are sorry for that. Or somehow tell them that they believe that I did, and an email is the response that I got. Until that's addressed, I don't think the family can move forward at all, and I don't think I can do anything about that. But I can see how they would be stuck in this constant turmoil and magnified trauma until that at least has taken responsibility. And then there was an issue. There will be an issue between the family and the police on how to come to terms with that issue.
That concludes my questions. Thank you.
Yes. Anything arising?
Sorry, I think that the next person to ask questions of this witness is his own counsel.
But before that happens, transcript only captures a certain amount of what goes on in court. But for the record, after the witness gave that answer, he turned to the back of the court and nodded sagely to somebody in the back of the court, as if to say, there it is.
I think
That's what happened.
Well,
Shouldn't I say that?
Interpretation
Isn't that right?
being placed on my client. Claiming my client.
That's what he did.
We've heard the description of, I was looking down at my notes, I didn't see it, Mr. Abbott, but we've got a description on the record of what was observed. And then we have, well, I accept that Mr. Bolton saw an action which he has described, whether or not his attribution of it is correct, I accept that is an attribution and it is not part of the description.
I protest of the description without hearing the camera.
That's right, the live stream will be able to assist in that.
I would have thought the live stream would be able to tell us.
Well, I don't know that the live stream isn't recorded. There are a large number of people no doubt watching on the live stream. I won't have an opportunity because it's not saved, as I understand it.
It is saved,
Oh, it is saved. Okay,
May not follow that.
all right.
No,
Yes,
yes,
Mr. Pett.
I say that I learned from my accounts after all.
No, Mr. Abbott, we're going through all the parties. It's your turn next. There may be some things arising that Council Assistant wishes to address, and we will take the usual process as we have done with all other witnesses, save for potentially some institutional witnesses, and Mr. Rolfe is not one of those.
Your Honour, I thought the examination find even in the inquest like this, after all the parties will examine the question, I was given the opportunity, based on all the questions to re-examine the matter. Right.
Well, you may examine him now. Council Assisting will have an opportunity to deal with matters arising, and if you have any difficulties with anything that is dealt with at that time, I can hear from you further.
really had a very lengthy examination of my client, which two parties, were never been parties, for a role of my position, my client's.
There's nothing can be attributed to the manner in which questions have been asked in these proceedings, in spite of those statements. Questions have been asked in order to elicit information to assist the Inquest in arriving at all the available evidence and hopefully moving forward to an identification as best as is able of determining the truth of certain matters. Thank you. Are you ready to proceed? Absolutely, we can take the morning tea, German. Until 11:15, you've got 20 minutes, Mr. Abbott.
Stop them.
Thank you.